Hello and welcome to DFS Coach Talk. It is Friday, October 29th, 2021. I am Andrew Hanson, back in the studio once again with Josh Crash Davis, this time for the Week 8 Primetime show. 2 NFL games, Sunday and Monday night. Some big quarterbacks and matchups here, Josh. Are you ready to break it down with me?
Yeah, I am. I think this is going to be a really good game. We've got some big injury news that we're going to have to watch and see what happens there. But if everything comes together, everyone plays, these should be, especially this first game, should be a pretty good one.
Yeah, Dallas, Minnesota. Let's talk about that one. Sunday night, 8:20 Eastern, and big question marks on that Dallas side. Let's see if we can figure it out here, because we're getting conflicting reports out of the Dallas camp, all the way from Jerry Jones down through the front office. We may need to call coach and see if he has some inside knowledge here, because we know that with NFL, all he cares about is the Cowboys.
Right.
And it's interesting because both of these teams are coming off the bye, and you'd think that maybe Dallas would be ready to go, but some big question marks with Dak and company.
Yeah, there really is. It's pretty surprising because usually when you come off a bye, you want to come in with a good feeling, you're healthy and ready to go and rested, and they've got a lot of question marks. So, I mean, the biggest question mark you could probably have when your star quarterback's out or possibly out. So,
yeah, after a monster game against New England in
yeah.
that overtime win before the bye. So now I'll set the stage, and you can break down the Cowboys side. We've got Dallas at 5-1, the underdogs, probably because of the question marks. Minnesota favored by 3 at home at 3-3. Total here 52, courtesy of our friends at BetUS.com.pa. So I mean, let's start with Dak here. What are your thoughts? It's Friday night here, so a long way until kickoff. But assuming he plays, what do you think about this Dallas side?
Yeah, if assuming he plays, I'm definitely going to be looking to roster Dak. He's averaging 302 passing yards per game, which is fourth most in the league. He's thrown 16 touchdowns, only 4 interceptions. Like you mentioned earlier, he's coming off that huge game against New England. He threw 51 times for 445 yards and 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. And that was against the Patriots, who've had a pretty good, defense against quarterbacks. They've allowed the 7th fewest fantasy points. And the Vikings are actually right behind them with the 8th fewest fantasy points allowed to quarterbacks. So very similar matchup. And I think that if he plays, he can put up pretty similar numbers. I really do. I think that Vikings secondary is going to be pretty vulnerable.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the fantasy points, and I looked at that as well. They can be had. Kyler Murray had a big game against them.
Mm-hmm.
They've been more solid against other matchups, but Dak's right in that same realm as Kyler. So I agree. Right. It could be a good situation for Dak if he's out there. Now, where are you going to look to pair him up?
I'm going to pair him up with CeeDee Lamb. No surprise there. Last week, CeeDee Lamb saw 11 targets, his most since he had 15 in Tampa in week 1. He had, brought in 9 of those 11 targets for 149 yards and 2 touchdowns for his best game of the year with 39 fantasy points. And he's projected to primarily match up against Bashaud Breeland. Breeland has been, capable of getting burned. I've had a couple of games that I've seen Breeland myself, not in person, but on TV when he was with the Packers. And so I know that that's a matchup that Lamb can take advantage of. Breeland has allowed 23 receptions this year, has a coverage rating, according to Pro Football Focus, of 53.2. So Lamb is definitely going to be my primary receiver that I'm looking to pair him up with.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I've preferred Lamb this year, especially on DraftKings with PPR. But I'm a little more interested in Cooper than usual here with a $2,800 savings. And we have seen from Dallas what we heard we were going to see, which is these receivers moving around quite a bit, left and right. And Pro Football Focus actually gives Cooper a tiny edge on the matchups, 65.2 to 62.4. So this may be a week where I take the savings with Cooper.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to keep playing with that. But we also have Gallup questionable, trending towards doubtful. Is that what you're seeing, Josh?
Yeah, it's looking like he's probably not going to make it till next week against Joe's Denver Broncos.
So we could have some more Cedric Wilson. He's been getting
Yeah.
a couple catches here recently. What about tight ends and running backs for Dallas?
So yeah, I'm definitely looking at Zeke. He's 13.8 in the captain spot, 9,200 in the flex. He scored 23 fantasy points or more in 3 of his last 4 games. He's $200 cheaper than Dalvin Cook against the Vikings defense that ranks 26 in rushing yards. They've allowed 128 rushing yards per game, and they're 30th in yards per carry at 4.8. So there definitely should be some opportunities there for Zeke. And I don't know how many people know this, but he actually saw 9 targets last week as well. So if they're going to get him heavily involved in the passing game like that, I'm definitely going to want to roster him on DraftKings.
Yeah, he's picked it up a little bit with Pollard nipping at his heels with his production, and I am on Zeke as well this week. The Cowboys have a 78% run blocking advantage. That's the second highest for the entire Week 8 slate,
Mm.
according to PFF. So, especially with Dak not 100%, I think this could be a strong Zeke week. And then how about the tight ends?
Yeah, I am looking at Dalton Schultz. He scored double-digit fantasy points in all but 1 game this year. He's averaging about 6 targets a game. He makes for that nice lower-owned GPP play that could give you leverage against the higher-priced and probably higher-owned options on the slate. So I am looking at Dalton Schultz for sure in the larger tournaments.
Yeah, he's definitely picked it up lately. Gotten a nice little bump in targets without Gallup. Um, I did notice that Minnesota has yet to give up a touchdown to tight ends.
Hmm.
So we'll see if Schultz can break that trend because he has had a nose for the end zone lately. All right, let's go to this Minnesota side. And they are coming off the overtime win against Carolina, got themselves to 500, and now they've got Dallas at home. And here's the thing with Minnesota, we know they love to run the ball and give it to Cook, but the matchup says throw it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way to beat Dallas. Teams have been doing it all year, not for the victory, since Dallas only has one loss, but that's how they've been moving the ball. And Cousins, I mean, if he gets the opportunity, he can do some damage.
Mm-hmm.
373 yards passing against Carolina with 3 scores. So I'd like to get some exposure to this Minnesota passing attack. I will roster Cousins. He is expensive on DraftKings. The question is, who do we match him up with? Well, we want to avoid Mr. Diggs. Uh, what a playmaker for Dallas.
Yeah.
He's spending 61% of his time on the right side. But the thing with Minnesota is they move their guys around too.
Right.
Jefferson 38% on the left side, Thielen 32. So, this could again be a situation where you go with the cheaper guy. They're a little bit tighter in price. But both guys have really strong matchup grades from PFF, 88 and 79,
Mm.
respectively. So, you could go with one of those, or you could really get the savings with KJ Osborne. He's only 5,000 on DraftKings this week. Had that big touchdown to win it last week. 61% in the slot. He's got that matchup against Lewis. So, I'm looking at all 3 guys really. And I mean, let's be honest. It's challenging to handicap Minnesota wide receivers. Um, and sometimes it can just come down to who gets the touchdown or 2. But do you have an interest in this passing attack?
Yeah, I'm probably going to play Justin Jefferson. I think he has the highest upside of all the receivers in Minnesota. Just for a ceiling. But as far as value goes, I definitely could see KJ Osborne being a solid play, and of course, Adam Thielen is a proven veteran, solid numbers every year. So really, any of those 3 you could go and feel pretty good about. But for me personally, I'm leaning towards Jefferson and Osborne.
Okay. And then I'll circle back to the running back group here. Cook obviously getting the monster share of the touches. Madison back on the fringes. Uh, you know, and again, because they love to feed him, it's tough to fade him.
Mm-hmm.
But if we go with Zeke, and we go with some of this Minnesota passing attack, one of the stud Dallas receivers probably can't get to Dalvin Cook. So I'm leaning
Yeah.
towards fading him, even though it's an uncomfortable thing to do when you're playing a Viking showdown game. But we need to save some money somewhere. So one possibility is Conklin, 4,400. He's picking it up here, 71 yards last week. Dallas has given up 4 touchdowns to tight ends, 11th most fantasy points. So he's an option. Then there's D.D. Westbrook getting a catch or two here and there. He's ultra cheap, 800. A little bit dinged up. Don't necessarily need to go that low, but just want to mention the potential pass catchers here. But are you with me? Could you see yourself fading Cook?
Yeah, I mean, if Dak doesn't play, then we can definitely get to Cook, I think, because we don't have to worry about paying up for him.
Yep.
But if he does play like we're expecting him to, then it's going to be hard to get to Cook and Jefferson and Ezekiel Elliott and CeeDee Lamb. I mean, it's just you're going to run out of money pretty quick. So
yeah,
you have to make some tough choices.
Right, not like that showdown game we had recently where there's no salary cap on FanDuel. You are going to have to make some choices this week. All right, well, before we get to game 2, if you want to see the choices that we end up making, jump in with us at dfscoachtalk.com. Get our showdown lineups. We do full lineups for FanDuel, Yahoo, cash lineups, GPP. We do the core on DraftKings for cash and GPP. Sign up on the website. We'll get you into our Discord. Jump in before the Sunday main slate so you get those lineups as well. And then whichever membership you get, you're still going to get all of our other sports. So basketball 7 days a week, World Series lineups. Josh has been smashing those. And our golf lineups Wednesday and Friday. All right, let's go to game 2, Josh. New York and Kansas City. And this we expect will be a slate with a salary cap. Right now, we don't have the pricing yet.
No numbers, yeah.
Friday night, I think DraftKings and FanDuel are waiting for the injury news with New York with a bunch of moving parts. So I'll let you get us going there. I just want to mention the spread right now. KC favored by 10. The over-under also 52 here. Monday night kickoff, of course, 8:15. So what I'm looking at here is Saquon doubtful, probably out. Same thing with Golladay. And then we may have the more successful receiving core for the Giants. We may get Tony, Shepard, and Slayton. Is that what you're projecting?
Yeah, that's what it's looking like. And then there's just question marks about all of them, but it looks like that Shepard and Tony should be back this week. So,
all right. Well, Casey's struggled defensively this year. Are you interested in some of these Giants?
Yeah, I'm going to be looking at Daniel Jones. Everybody's going to flock to Mahomes, but for a GPP, you could look at Daniel Jones. Kansas City has allowed the second most fantasy points to quarterbacks. He's kind of due for a bounce back game. He's kind of cooled off recently. He had a really pretty strong start to the season, those first 4 games, and then just kind of fell off lately. So I think in this matchup, especially if he has his weapons back there, it's going to put him in a good position to bounce back. So he would be where I would start.
I mean, last week you had Dante Pettis out there, John Ross.
Yeah.
So like you said, he really didn't have his weapons, but an awesome matchup here. So do you have a preference out of if we do get Tony, Shepard, and Slayton?
Yeah, I think I'm probably going to lean towards Shepard and Tony. Shepard, he's questionable, but if he plays, he and Tony should see the most targets. Shepard has games this year where he saw 14, 10, and 9 targets. He's only played in 4 games, so 3 of them he's had basically double-digit targets. So you definitely could look at Shepard there. And then on the other side with Kadarius Toney, he had that monster game in Dallas. He had 10 receptions, 13 targets for 189 yards. Didn't score a touchdown, but he still had like 30 DraftKings points and then got hurt the next week against the Rams. So he's definitely shown the potential to have that monster breakout game. And against the Chiefs, who struggled against wide receivers, this is a pretty favorable matchup for him too. So, in GPPs, you could look at a giant stack that could really, really put you in a good position.
It absolutely could. How about the running back situation? Devontae Booker has stepped in for Saquon and done some damage. Again, we don't have the pricing yet, but is that an area you're looking at?
Not really, but if you wanted to go there, he should be the workhorse. He should get the bulk of the carries. He had 14 carries last week for 51 yards and a touchdown. I just really want to rely more on these receivers because I think this is going to be a shootout, back and forth type game. And so they're going to have to score quick to keep up with Kansas City. So I could see them just relying heavily on the pass.
Yeah, I'm getting excited at the thought of a shootout on Monday night with some competent quarterbacking.
Yeah.
We didn't see that this last Monday night, did we?
No Geno Smith and Jameis Winston in this game.
Yikes. How about tight ends here? Mr. Ingram? Is he in the mix?
Yeah, he is in the mix. He's been brought up in a lot of trade rumors recently. He's going to be looking to make a strong impression to his next team, I think. The trade deadline is the next day after the game, so November 2nd. With all the injuries at wide receiver, you could be looking at him, especially if either Shepard or Tony are ruled out, to get in a boost in targets. Kansas City has allowed the 5th most fantasy points to tight end. So I am looking at Ingram as a possible GPP option as well.
All right, excellent. Well, if we're going to get some back and forth action here, let's talk about the KC side. And man, what a disappointing performance against Tennessee. They lost 27-3. Mahomes turning it over left and right, and then just got hammered on that play at the end. That was a rough one. I thought they were going to get the wake-up call after that loss to Buffalo, but just kind of going through the motions. Now they're 3-4. I mean, it's really wake-up time now. And there has been talk in Kansas City from Mahomes and others about, making the right decision, not necessarily going for the home run ball. So I put my faith in them again here and, get Mahomes out there and match him up with, probably at least one of his studs, Kelsey or Hill. I'm kind of leaning towards Kelsey because if you think about it, Hill is, ultra fast. So for anyone to get a deep shot to, it's about as quick as you can get. But if he's going to get the ball out of his hands quicker, it's going to go to Kelsey.
Yeah.
And how many times have we seen Mahomes roll out and Kelsey's, 10, 12 yards down the field open, but he forgoes that for the home run shot. Maybe this week he checks it down a little bit more and uses Kelsey. And he has an awesome matchup here. 52% advantage against Ragland, according to PFF. Kind of middle of the road in terms of actual fantasy points allowed, but they haven't faced a Kelsey. They have given up 4 touchdowns. So I'm looking at Mahomes to Kelsey here. And then it's sort of a matter of who else can you fit. New York's given up the 10th most fantasy points to wide receivers. So Hill, is a natural fit. And the matchup is strong in the slot where Hill has now run 58% of his routes, but Hardman has run 52% of his routes there, and he's been getting more and more action. We know he's going to be much cheaper than Hill, so that's an option. And then Byron Pringle picked it up last week, 5 catches for 73. Whenever he gets run, he can be the difference maker on a showdown slate, no doubt about it, because he's always cheap. But he's got that big play upside. So that's kind of my main focus here. Are you going to have significant exposure to the KC passing attack?
Yeah, definitely. And I like what you said about Kelsey, with Mahomes getting the ball out quicker to dump it off to him. It makes a lot of sense. One thing that's really surprised me about Kansas City is they went out this offseason and spent all this money and went and traded for Pro Bowl left tackle in Orlando Brown. They really tried to reinforce their offensive line after what happened in the Super Bowl. And it's really just kind of like they didn't do anything. It almost looks like, last week against Tennessee, Mahomes was just running for his life again. So the offensive line has really disappointed to me. And I would definitely look for Mahomes to be dumping the ball off rather quick this week.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you have to cut him some slack because it's a new line. But
Mm-hmm.
you're right; they haven't quite pulled it together. On paper, there is an opportunity to run it here, though. KC has a 50% run advantage against New York. So Darrell Williams definitely in play, and we know that he'll catch balls as well.
Yeah.
Jerick McKinnon in the mix, got a couple catches last week, so he could steal some of that work. But if Casey's ahead, I like Williams as a potential play here, and that's probably it for me. Demarcus Robinson's really fallen off.
Mm-hmm.
Josh Gordon hasn't quite acclimated yet. Only one
Right.
target last week, no catches. So yeah, it's that initial group where we're trying to get as much out of Mahomes, Kelsey, Williams, Hill, Hardman. Um, that's where I'm gonna look this week with KC.
Yeah. Yeah, it's must win time for Kansas City. I mean, they're 3-4 now. Is that right? I believe they're 3
That's
and 4.
correct.
Yeah, yeah. Hard to believe, but yeah, 3-4. It's must win. They lose this game, I mean, their season's pretty much over. So they've got to win this game, and I think Andy Reid's going to pull out all the stops. Get that offense going and lead to a big win on Monday.
That's right. And we look at every slate like a must win, where we give it our all. So we're going to do that for both of these games. We'd love to have you join us, dfscoachtalk.com. Any questions, you can reach out to us on Twitter at dfscoachtalk. If you don't mind, hit that thumbs up if you like these podcasts. We'll keep them coming to you in front of the paywall, 11 podcasts per week. Check out the Main Slate podcast if you haven't seen that yet, and check out our daily NBA shows, of course. All right, so that'll do it for the Primetime show. Appreciate everybody tuning in, and look forward to some big winners this weekend. Enjoy the football and the Halloween mixed in
Yeah,
as well. Quite a
true.
combo.
It's true.
Yeah. All right. Well, on behalf of Josh Crash Davis and the rest of the DFS Coach Talk team, I'm Andrew Hanson. We'll see you next time as we look to crush it in DFS.